Welcome back, family. I want to warn you before we get started that this is going to get dark, and it's for a reason. It's so that people can see what we're up against. Everyone's always asking, who are they? Why do they lie? And I want it to be clear, even though we've covered it before in a series that I will link in the description called Who They Are and Why They Lie, the complete series. It covers as much as I can in a short amount of time about the spiritual aspect, and I want that spiritual aspect to become alive so that people will see why it is that the lying signs and wonders are ramping up and why it is that we're calling them out because they've done some things that are very eye opening. Like in recent times, back in 2016, they banned the word Jesus from their flyers being used at NASA. And the timing of that is very strange because it's at a time when people were waking up to the truth about what we live on. And then they started getting exposed at about that exact same time. They started having a lot of errors with their live feeds. Many things started not working properly. And it might have been because there were people in their space center, innocent people. There's lots of innocent people that work there that were praying, and they were sending out flyers inviting people to join their worship crew. And that is where, or I guess their worship club, it says right here, and that's where things went south. They banned that word and they started getting exposed at a whole new level. And we're going to do more of that. And it's not just NASA, there's other agencies out there in the world being controlled by the same powers of darkness. It's why they all get along. It's why we have the International Space Station. It's international, it is a worldwide deception. And the people that are a part of this were doing some things that I would have never thought they were doing if it weren't for a fellow researcher and scientist, George Nuber from GeoTruth. As I'm doing vacuum experiments at his house, watching him do them at least, he's carrying them out. And he said that he had found out that NASA had done some experiments with man's best friend. And I thought, surely not. And if they did, maybe it was minimal. Maybe they just used a couple dogs. Maybe these dogs weren't so healthy or something like that. However, as I did some digging, I was really, really sad to find out this wasn't the case. And I know there's a lot of globe believers out there who trust NASA. Some of them are heavily promoted, and they have a dog with them in like every video. And they are supporting an organization that took 126 conscious dogs. This is from their own article. I'm not making this up. You can see the source right here. I'll link that in the description as well to this document. It's from nasa.gov. And this corporation, or this, whatever you want to call it, this government funded organization, or people funded, we're paying for it, took 126 conscious dogs and rapidly decompressed them, meaning they are taking the air out of the environment they are in, like a vacuum chamber. And they did that, and we're recording the effects. And I'm not going to read everything. I highlighted some of the key points here, and you can see that when they were doing the things that they were doing, rapidly decompressing them, they noted that within 9 to 10 seconds after decompression, so it didn't take long, that there were lots of things happening, and they recorded them on film, so there's video footage probably somewhere, unless they destroyed it along with the moon landing footage. But they say that the effects of anoxia, water vapor, and other evolved gases were apparent, resulting in a generalized muscle spasticity, a few gasps, momentary convulsive seizures, apnea, and gross swelling of the body and extremities. All dogs exposed for less than 120 seconds survived, despite evidence of lung involvement. Respiration recommenced spontaneously either during recompression or at ground level, provided the heart was beating. Otherwise, death was inevitable. The longer the exposure time, the more prolonged was the time for recovery, which usually ranged from a few minutes to a few hours, except for one dog, which exhibited a severe post-decompression paralysis with gradual recovery over a period of several weeks. And then exposures to 120 to 180 seconds resulted in approximately 15% to more than 80% fatalities. That means they didn't live. And so, trying to be careful with how I say these things. I don't know which words flag YouTube, but that's what they were doing to living, innocent creatures way back when. And I say way back when, this really wasn't that long ago. This was in the 60s, I believe. I think 1965 is when this was published. Yeah, it was June 1st, 1965. So there's the website. That's where I got this from. I can't believe it's still out there on the internet. I don't know why they wouldn't delete this. But that's what they were doing with animals However, they brought in people who had done far worse than that with living innocent children, people from another country. They brought them here with Operation Paperclip, and the one I'm going to look at today, there's many others. His name is Hubertus Strughold, and this guy brought over, like I said, Operation Paperclip in 1947. The things that he's done, it would make Operation Paperclip happening today seem like it's no big deal. Imagine if they said, hey guys, guess what? Former ISIS leader who was brought to the U.S. during Operation Paperclip 2.0 has served his time in the U.S. Army and will now be promoted to chief scientist at NASA. I think you guys would probably be in an uproar. However, they did this back then. This guy was not just at NASA, he was in the U.S. Air Force, from one military experience to the other. How sad is that? And so this guy, the reason I'm bringing him up is because history repeats itself. I haven't seen them do something like this yet, again, I don't think. I'm sure they probably have. And they always say it's, oh, so we could help defeat the Russians. You know, it's always this legitimized reason to make it seem like, oh, well, they were just trying to help us all out. It's for the betterment of mankind, bringing these people over here. We don't usually do that. And I think it has to do with the powers of darkness, because the things you see these scientists were doing when they were over there, very similar to the dogs. We learned this stuff from somewhere, how we got fluoridation of water. They were doing that with the people in the camps, and it worked great to keep them docile, and they brought that practice over here, from what I've heard. And so this guy, Mr. Strughold, he is called the father of space medicine. And how he earned that title? It's sinister. Before he was given the name of the chief scientist of NASA in their aerospace medical division back in '62, he was practicing his space medicine in Germany. And so the sad part about that is that he was using, like I said, people, young people. I'm going to give you an example right here. It talks about the questionings that arose about Strughold and his activities during World War II, and it says they emerged in 2004. So after he had passed away, there was an investigation conducted by the Historical Committee of the German Society of Air and Space Medicine, and the inquiry uncovered some evidence of oxygen deprivation experiments carried out by Strughold's Institute for Aviation Medicine in 1943. So the guy they brought over here and pampered and promoted and put in the military and at NASA, here's what happened. It says their findings were that 6 epileptic children between the ages of 11 and 13 were taken from their euthanasia center to Strughold's Berlin laboratory. So this man that we've named awards after, libraries after, put on TV, he was doing these things. He placed them in vacuum chambers to induce the epileptic seizures in an effort to simulate the effects of high altitude sickness such as hypoxia. So experimenting with precious children, this is satanic. It's evil. We brought those evil practices directly onto our soil. And NASA, when it was founded, wasn't founded by Christians. It was founded by Satanists who were doing rituals. You can look into those rituals. The final card that we have talks a little bit about them. I don't want to get into all the names and the details, but there were rituals going on when these organizations were being founded. And so they're bringing in more darkness. And their experiments didn't stop there. They were using cold water, seeing how hypothermia sets in, experimenting with innocent people. You can read about that here. These people were immersed, those inmates, they call them inmates as if they were guilty, were placed in freezing water and also placed in more air pressure chambers and made to endure invasive surgical procedures without anesthetics. Not even numbing them, not giving them medication, experimenting on them. Similar to the dogs. I'm sure they weren't given anesthetics either. And so this guy, Mr. Hubertus Strughold, was connected to the human experiments in Germany. And the things that happened, this is what really broke my heart. I told you guys it was going to get dark. I don't like talking about these things, but it's important we see what we are up against. Otherwise, we're going to continue to be deceived and think they are innocent, have our best interests at heart. They don't. There's powers of darkness at work. Mankind would not have thought of these things on their own. And so the guy heading these experiments, Joseph Mengele, if I'm saying that right, in the 40s, they were taking twins. And why this really breaks my heart is because I could relate to twins because I am one. I have a twin brother. We have an extremely close bond. We have been together longer than anyone else will ever be with somebody because we're together before we're born. 9 months. Actually, in our case, 7 months. We were born early. But still, it's a close bond. You have a protective instinct when it comes to your twin. You want to fight for them. And we've done that many times in our lives. And so the experiments they did, it says they included amputating healthy limbs, deliberately infecting them with diseases such as typhus, blood transfusions from one twin to the other. There's a reason they did that. And sewing twins together to create conjoined twins. Why would you do that? Like, Jeffrey Dahmer wouldn't do things like that. This is ridiculous. Sewing them together, alive, no anesthetics. And here it says Eva Moses Kaur, who was a survivor, claimed that Mengele cross-transfused the blood of opposite-sex twins to change their respective sexes, experimented on twins, you know what, and attempted to attach the urinary tract of a 7-year-old girl. This is what really angers me and saddens me. I have a daughter, precious daughter who was age 7. This makes me want to go to war right now with these people. They did that to try and attach it to her own colon. I don't even know why, what the purpose would be. How is that benefiting humanity? It's torture. It's sad. And it says here that most of the twins did not live. And if they did survive, they would be put down and dissected for comparative post-mortem reports. Extremely sad what this guy was connected to. And yet people like that are brought over here, put in charge of founding our alleged American organizations, helping them grow and prosper. And these are the people up top with these institutions. When you ask why would they lie and who are they? It's the people up top, and they are the ones that were put up top. Even though they didn't speak our language as their first language. But they learned pretty quick, and they came over, took charge, had libraries named after them, and this guy has awards named after him. He's in films, and I found one of those today where he's talking about a lot of those aspects of the dangers of space. And I had read in CIA documents, declassified documents, about manned satellites. And I thought, what was the deal with manned satellites? Why would they put people in satellites? That makes no sense. And he was talking here in this video, I'm not going to play it, but he was talking about just that. Finding out the experience of the radiation above us, the UV radiation and all the things and the effects on you. And he's like, yeah, we won't find out until we have men or animals in the satellites. And I'm like, man, that sounds kind of odd, almost like they're going to be experimenting on the animals and the men in the satellites. So when I'm reading about the manned satellites, now it's a little creepy because I'm thinking these weren't people driving them around, making them change their directions attached to a balloon. They were up there finding out what happened to them, probably leaving them up there until something happened. This is just my suspicions. I could be wrong. But leaving them up there, seeing what happened, bringing them back down, checking them out like it said in the article, post-mortem, seeing how they passed away, what effects being up at that altitude had on them. Hoping that wasn't the case, but you know, with what we are learning, I wouldn't put it past them. It's heartbreaking. It's sad. Again, I do not like sharing these things, but I feel like it's essential for us to be as wise as the serpents to see what those serpents have been up to. And those serpents are set on not just corrupting all flesh, but deceiving all flesh, doing things that go against the Most High and His beloved creations. So we have to know that. There's no limits to how dark the things they do are going to be or have been. And that's why our Father has been extremely upset in the Word when you read all the things they were doing, sacrificing their young ones. These things were not just accidental, them just following some barbaric culture. They were under the influence of demonic powers. And so are those who are pulling off these deceptions. We have to understand that. Not warring against flesh and blood, but against these principalities and powers of darkness.
Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents, and harmless as doves. Let no man deceive himself. If any man among you seemeth to be wise in this world, let him become a fool, that he may be wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. For it is written, He taketh the wise in their own craftiness. And again, the Lord knoweth the thoughts of the wise, that they are vain. Therefore let no man glory in men. For all things are yours, whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas or the world or life or death or things present or things to come, all are yours. And ye are Christ's, and Christ is God's.